Max and I along the campaign trail, and for the 10 years that I've been talking to MTA members, we keep hearing, my workload has increased. They're asking me to do more with less, for longer hours and less pay. Whether it's the exploitation of adjuncts and outsourcing of services at higher ed and unsettled contracts, or the pile-on of high-stakes testing, the austerity budgets at pre-K-12 and even in higher ed, and the loss of autonomy. But guess what? The good news is, in the words of Twisted Sister, which has become the motto of teacher uprisings, we're not going to take it anymore. And that's what today's panelists are here to tell you. The stories of how they have stopped taking it. But before they tell their stories, I want to remind you that we stopped taking it too, right? We didn't take the charter school cap lift, and neither did So I want to introduce our panelists. We have Lynn Budd and Maureen Colgan-Posner from Springfield Education Association. What democracy looks like in a union and how we give voice to educators of color to decide what their struggle is and how to struggle and build solidarity and how to win. And Arlene Inouye is from United Teachers Los Angeles. I didn't say the And Arlene's story is the story that is the public referendum on the state of public education in California and how they're fighting and they're winning. And then Jay O'Neill from West Virginia. Jay's story is a story that started as lack of health care for educators, and it turned into so much more. It turned into the story of tax cuts for the rich and austerity for the rest of us. And what Jay is doing is taking, and it's not just Jay, it's Jay and the educators of West Virginia. They're taking a red state and they're making it red for ed. So we're going to start a conversation today with all of our panels, and I want to start with Maureen. And Maureen and Lynn, would you tell us really how things started in your local, what you were dealing with, and what was the state of your union?
So I'm gonna, is this on? I'm gonna talk about the state of the union, and then I'm gonna let Lynn talk a little bit about what was going on there. So our union was in the middle of a transformation. We had a president who had been there for about 20 years, so I was coming in new, so that was a little bit different. Also, we had been slowly but surely having conversation about changing from that top-down model that you were talking about in Worcester to more of a grassroots, a member-led, organized union. And so I think it was kind of a perfect storm. And it started out, I think, with conversations among the leadership team. We were not diverse. We didn't have a lot of members of color that were in any leadership positions really within the union. And we were very lucky to have our chairperson of the Professional Development Committee was really the only person of color that was in a leadership role. And she was really good about being willing to have conversations with us that were really open and honest, and where we could really start to say, okay, this isn't okay anymore. We've got to do something different. How do we change this? And it was really so kind of those one-on-one conversations just got leadership thinking about what are we going to do differently. And then I think Lynn can talk about what the membership, how that ruins the membership. So.
And so in Springfield Public Schools, we have over 2,000 teachers, educators, and only 15% of them are educators of color. There's buildings that you can go into that have no educators of color at all. So educators of color started to have a conversation, one-on-one conversations. We talked about our joys, we talked about our challenges, and we slowly began to see the common themes and threads amongst us. We felt, as a collective, more together. And that's how Alana
We need to hear you.
Can everyone hear me? I'll bring it a little closer. So it's through those one-on-one conversations that we really started to come together as a collective. That started the end of the 2016-2017 school year. So as you can see, we're still kind of relatively new as a collective. We culminated that school year with a social, which we had a great outcome for educators that were there. How many would you say?
I mean, it was amazing. I said to her just before, I didn't actually know we had that many educators of color in Springfield until I went to that event, because they weren't part of us. You didn't see them at meetings. But I would say, I mean, 100, 120, it was amazing. It was an awesome turnout.
Conversations. We did a lot of phone calls, we did push cards, we had meetings, and we had another social just to try to build on the momentum that we had created. So that's kind of how Alana started.
Arlene, would you also So Arlene, tell us about your situation and what was the state of your union and how things got started.
Sure. It's good to see everyone here. I just want to start a little bit with some bottom line issues that I think we all are facing, and then show how that was reflected in LA, in UTLA. You know, I feel like what we're seeing is like a cancer. Charterization, privatization of schools, of our public schools, is like an invasion. And we have it in LA because you can have public schools, and if there's any unused space, a charter school can go into that space. So it's literally you're next door to, you have two schools, and you have a public school and you have a charter school. Unequal resources and a new era of segregation over there. So that's one issue, the invasion. And then the second issue is the cuts, which is like starvation. And we're all experiencing those two issues, but in different ways. It can be very slow and you might not even feel it. Or it can be an extreme, as we'll hear from Jay. But I feel like those are the issues that we all have experienced, and that Mary said at the beginning. You know, more work, less time, more demanded from you, more mandates. All of that is what we're all going through. So in LA in particular, we're democratic, right? But it's corporate Democrats who have pushed the privatization model and who have gone along with the cuts. We had a proposition, a tax proposition in 1978, 40 years ago, that has bled our schools. It was Proposition 13. And we went from being at the top of the nation in per pupil spending to being at the bottom. So we're the 5th richest economy in the world. 5th richest economy, not state, economy. California Charter School Association puts money, $13 million into our local school board campaign. $13 million, the most expensive expensive school board race in the history of the nation. Just happened this past May. Eli Broad, Reed Hastings from Netflix, the Waltons of Walmart, they are our enemies. And they've been attacking us in LA. So we had members who had gotten very angry, very dissatisfied with the leadership of the union. They would ask, why isn't our union doing anything? And we had individual officers with an individual agenda, and it was about their individual personalities, and exactly not what a union should be like. So a group of us, our progressive caucus, a whole bunch of us came together and we put together an agenda with the issues that you saw on the screen. Student focus, our students' learning conditions are our working conditions. We put all those issues at the table. And some of them are non-monetary, testing, too much testing. We put out all the concerns that you saw, including the issues of charters, including the issues of more resources into our schools. So we put a clear campaign out there, and our members decided to give us a chance, and they voted us in with a majority of our board, and we transformed our union in 4 years.
What was your situation and what was the union context that you were all operating in?
So it's interesting because you think of LA or Massachusetts or something, I think you think that's really different than West Virginia. We're really rural, a little more isolated, but it's the same story, right? I call it death by 1,000 cuts. It's just slowly they take and they take and they take and they ask you to do more with less. Ours happened to be around our health insurance. In West Virginia, all public employees have the same health insurance, and it's done through a state agency. And this is probably going to sound familiar to you too. About 10 years ago, we had big corporate tax cuts in our state. Said it was done to, boost the economy, bring in more jobs. It's not true we have fewer jobs now than we had before that, but it blew a huge, like $200 million hole in our budget. And, who bears the brunt of it? Public employees with their health insurance. So we just had cuts after cuts after cuts. I know 1 year teaching, I looked at my paycheck and I was actually bringing home less money than the year before because my premiums had gone up so much.
Yeah.
So this is happening over and over. People are just getting really frustrated, but I think feeling a little defeated too, like, well, what can we do about it? To also set some context for you, West Virginia is a little strange in that we have kind of 3 main education unions. We've got the West Virginia Education Association, we've got AFT, West Virginia, and then we also have an independent School Service Personnel Association, so the acronym is WPSSPA. And so in any given school, like in my school for instance, just down my hallway, there's EA members and AFT members. And I can see, it's a little strange. And you would like to think, oh, you guys always work together, right? No, because, we are basically a right to work state, so you don't even have to be a union member, right? So a lot of our time was spent trying to out-recruit the other union for members. All this while we're having kind of this crisis with our healthcare, underfunding that, our focus had kind of been at each other trying to take members, not looking at the bigger picture. And this is in a state, by the way, that the starting salary for teachers was $32,000 in some of our counties. So things were bad and people were not very organized. And I think the thing that really changed and got us going was people just started talking to each other. We just started communicating on the bottom level from, just grassroots, and started talking about it and, thinking about ways we could make change.
So this is kind of a silly question because we all know the answer, but what did you actually all do? And then practically, what did it take? Because so often we watch somebody else's fight and say, wow, that was really cool, but I can do that.
Yeah, so, and again, I just gave you that background because I want to make it clear, like, if we could do this, you definitely can. So we started talking to each other. I mean, actually, a lot of communication started with a Facebook group. That was set up, didn't matter what union you were in, anything like that. Eventually, we opened it to all public employees because they all had this health insurance, and we just started talking and brainstorming and looking at ways to do things. They might have a town hall in their community and they post video of it there, and other people would see that and kind of take that idea and run with it. Same kind of thing with informational pickets, and different things were shared and different people decided to do something. And in a way, we kind of got lucky with some things. That some of these changes to the health insurance, the letters went out at the same time to everybody across the state, and we just happened to have this Facebook group that was growing daily with thousands of members, and they get these letters, and does this mean what I think it means? You know, maybe post a video to the group, and other people say, yeah, it's going to be really bad. Your premiums are going to double. And people would get upset, and again, talking to each other, one thing would lead to another. The thing that really finally took us out on strike was our schools, by the way, are in counties, so it's county schools there. One county called an emergency meeting. They included both unions, actually all three unions members, and it basically just talked through it and said, you know, we've really had enough. We've tried this for forever. We've emailed our legislators, we've called, we've gone up and met with them for years, and nothing changes. They listen to us, they pat us on the back, they say, I'm so sorry, but there's nothing I can do, and nothing changes. And this was kind of an old coal mining area part of the state, a lot of union history, a lot of union actives, and they said, you know what, we're just not doing it. We're not gonna go to school next Friday. They call it Fed Up Friday. Three other counties decided to join them with that, their neighboring counties, and so on February 2nd, they walked out. And I wasn't in a county that did that then, but you know, like probably all of you would have been, on my planning period, I'm watching the live stream from them kind of marching on our Capitol and seeing it all, and that's kind of what we needed. We needed somebody to be bold enough and step out and say enough is enough, we're not doing this. Striking is illegal for public employees in West Virginia, but we also realize there's over 700 vacancies across the state. What are you going to do, fire teachers? Like, who are you going to get to fill these jobs? So we had that one county that did it. I think that kind of just showed us the way, and we decided nothing else is working, we're going to take action, we're going to do it. So a few weeks later, all of us were out.
So tell us what you're on the cusp of, but again, like in very tangible terms, what is it taking to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish?
Sure. I put down 8 things that I thought were pivotal for us. And I'm talking about a new leadership team that came into our union in 2014. And one, we decided that we were going to be centered around a broad social agenda. And this agenda was what our members wanted, because they voted for it years before. It was called the Schools LA Students Deserve. But the leadership had never acted on that agenda. And so we said, we're going to be the team that acts on this agenda. And we made it that very clear that this was our focus, and everything we did, you could see reflected in that. And I think in the video, when you saw those issues come up, though, that's part of the agenda, right? Our class sizes are too high, not enough nurses, counselors, all of those things are part of the agenda we put out. 2, we went from individual personalities to a team approach. We all were committed to that agenda for our union and for the good of UTLA. I think a big downfall of unions is when it becomes personal, when it becomes individual, when it becomes about money or power or whatever. We have to have a union that's about our members and about our communities. 3, we have 7 full-time officers. We have our membership is 34,000 members. We are early ed, adult ed, K-12, and health and human services. I'm a speech therapist who knew nothing about the union, nothing. And then some people said, you know what, you should be an officer. And they encouraged me, and I had no idea what I was getting into. But it, you know, again, if I could do it, you guys can do it too, right? There you go. So, so our union is big, but let me tell you that we went from 44,000 members down to 34,000 members in 10 years. And we've lost 250,000 students in the last 10 years. And that's mainly from charter school growth, but also from issues like gentrification, housing, you know, just other factors. But that we are smaller than we used to be. So another key thing is 3, staffing. Because our leadership was able to put, again, with our agenda on the table, our broad social agenda, align the staffing needs we needed. We never had a parent community organizer. We hired 2. We didn't have researchers. That was fundamental for the messages we put out there. So, and we also beefed up our communications department as key. Those 3 areas were really key. And I want to say that we did have affiliate support. We had CTA, CFT, NEA, and AFT supporting us, which was great because we started out with being aligned with one or the other. Our members could choose which membership they wanted, but we ended up merging, and I'll tell you about that in a second. 4, we had an organizing approach. First thing we did was make sure we went to school sites. We have over 800 schools, 850 schools, so each officer takes about 100. And we go at it, and we make sure we have member contact. And there's no silver bullet. Again, it's the one-on-ones that you hear about all the time. And we developed contract action teams. We stole that from Chicago. CAT teams at every school site who can help with that communication, who helps with the organizing at every school. 5, our messaging got really tight. And I think that is so important. Even our members started, you put a microphone in front of them, they could give our messages to anybody. So our members understood it, and it got communicated. 6, our members started trusting. We were member-driven, and they started trusting us as the leadership. And I'll share a little bit more about that in an example. 7, parent community engagement. We did not have an organized parent community engagement plan at all. Now we do. And we hired 2 parent community organizers. We have a group called ROS, Reclaim Our Schools LA, where parents and community groups sign on to our bargaining proposals and our platform. And that's expanding. 8, we have integrated everything, the political, the parents, the membership, bargaining, It's all integrated and all supports each other. Politicians have to sign on to our platform if they want our support now. So I want to tell you one story, a specific example of what was a foundation for us, I believe. And you know, when we became officers, the first thing we had to do was get a salary increase because we hadn't had one for 8 years and our members were so pissed, right, and angry. We were able to do that. But secondly, the second year, we had to deal with our due structure. We had the lowest due structure of any of the unions around. It was, I think it was, now I forget, but it was about $62 a month. And you choose one or the other union that you want to be affiliated with. And the reason we couldn't get it changed is because it was in our constitution that we had to have a full membership vote. And they tried it many times, but the membership always voted it down, right? They don't want to increase their dues. So what we did is we put an initiative, we called it Build the Future, Fund the Fight. And we talked to our members honestly about what the fight is and that we were taking it on. And we talked about the billionaires who were, you know, LA is the center, right, of the billionaire and the privatization movement attacking us. And we said, we want to fight back, but we need your support. So we asked for their help, and what we learned is that our members voted to have a 30% dues increase. A 30% dues increase by 82%. That's what funded the new direction we were taking, and it made us strong, and we would not be in a place right now to fight the Janus. We've actually increased our membership, we've gotten agency fee cut in half, and we increased our political contribution by 63% since January. And we have been able to do these things because I believe our members trusted us, they believed us. Everything we did, and we followed through it, and they saw that. And I think it's so critical that we have to lead, and we have to be the first ones to take the step and go all the way for our members to trust us.
So Maureen and Lynn, you talked also about the place that you've brought your union to, and then you've had some significant events happen with a lot of educators, and you're doing some really good organizing and having some successes. Would you tell us what the event is? And again, in practical terms, what did you do to get members to start solving the problem?
So through our conversations, one of the things that we found really stood out was the hiring practices, obviously, in our district. We were trying to figure out when were jobs posted, where were they posted, who was interviewed for the jobs, was everyone who applied to the jobs interviewed. Those were the questions we started asking ourselves. And I think the catalyst that really started us on the path of taking action toward that was a member had a story about something that happened to her at her school. The member was a counselor, and a family member of a high-ranking official was interning underneath her. After she signed off on the paperwork, that Friday she was told by HR that she'd be moved to a new building, therefore leaving her position open.
So not the one who was interning, but the experienced counselor who had had the job.
So we said, whoa.
And she was replaced by...
And this went into all the questions we were asking. When was this job posted? Who applied for this job? You know, so this really started us on the path to taking an action. We filed Freedom of Information requests about all those questions. And we also had a nice little get-together at a school committee meeting to speak out.
No, but so this, she's putting it very nicely. So that situation, that was really the one that pissed everybody off, quite frankly. And it was unbelievable. It was all of the things that you knew were going on, but couldn't quite see. And it was now right there in black and white in front of us. It was nepotism, it was favoritism.
It's in behind us, really thinking about taking
Yeah.
action on that.
And it was very powerful. So Alana really, they decided what their ask was going to be. They decided that it was time to go to the school committee and put this out there in public. Springfield only has 2 public speak outs a year before the school committee, so we knew we had to, right. We knew we had to get to that, so it was in April. We had to get to that one because there wasn't going to be another one until October. So I don't know if you remember like March and April, but we had a lot of snowstorms. So every time we were like getting a meeting together to get ourselves organized, it seemed like we had a snowstorm. But one of the things that was most powerful for me that led up to that was the Alana group and their allies were very careful in laying out how they were going to present to the legislative board, so our building reps at a meeting, how they were going to ask for their support to come to the school committee and stand together and say this is not okay. And they did a great job of planning it out. They were very strategic in who spoke about what.
Yes.
But I was standing here and all the members were there, and as they presented, you could see that even though most of our building reps were white, they heard and understood what they were talking about and had seen it and felt it and experienced it. So what I was seeing was a lot of people sitting there shaking, nodding up and down. And that was really cool because we were nervous. How are all these white people going to take what the Alana members and their allies are saying, without feeling like, oh, here they are, they're after my job. So for me, that was a really powerful thing. And then to go to the school committee, so she really played it down. The room was packed.
It was fantastic.
Yes, it was, yeah. The room was packed. And again, they were very strategic in how they laid it out, who spoke. And really at that point, the demand, even though they had more specific demands that they had worked on and thought that they could use to really try to start to make a change in the way the Springfield Public Schools were operating, at that public forum, it was simply to say, this is not okay. Like Lynn said, our teaching population is 15% educators of color. Our student population is about 85 or 87% students of color. So it was to say, this is not okay. We don't recruit, we don't retain, and we don't promote. And all 3 of those phases have to be addressed. We would like to help you with this. So it was really not a terribly confrontational ask. It was kind of a confrontational meeting.
We had about 90 people show up with signs, and a little bit of chanting happened as well during, and the mayor kind of put a stop to that and was not happy. One of the coolest things about it also was that we spoke about our issues, but some of the people that came to the speak out to talk about their issues, it ended up tying right in. And even one of the speakers had said, he's like, wow, I didn't know they were coming, but I'm talking about the same thing today. So it was very powerful, very powerful.
And I think the best thing about that was our Alana members and allies felt empowered. They walked away from that saying, we can impact, we can have an effect on the way these people view us, and what we can do. So I think that was a huge part of it. So do you want me to talk about the outcome right now, or do we?
Yeah, because
Yes?
we're
Okay.
coming close to
Okay.
the end of our
So,
time. It would
okay,
be
so
great.
very quickly, the outcome of that is that we did then say to them, we want accurate records of who's being interviewed, who's then being hired. So the school department attorney asked to meet with us to talk about what exactly that demand is and how can we help you fulfill that. So that was one thing that was amazing. She approached me after a meeting and said, we want to do that. Another thing that they did was they said, so that was one thing that they were willing to try and work on. They had a 45-minute presentation at the last school committee meeting about what they're doing to increase and, their recruitment,
on diversity, they've been posting job fairs with clearly labeled, we're looking for teachers of diverse backgrounds. I mean, they've really been pushing this.
Right, and so, and I think the other funny thing that happened was, so we had all these people and everybody leaves and now the school committee is doing their, boring business of approving, like, we're gonna accept a 52 Camry from whatever, for Putnam. So none of the school committee members spoke to address any of the issues of Alana as we were at that meeting. But at the end, now everybody's gone except for me, and one of the school committee members who was involved in this incident of nepotism, he went off and said, "How dare you say we don't care? We absolutely care," right? So I guess he was scolding me, I don't know. And then the mayor did the code speak for, all we want is the best candidates, So it was awesome because we have it on tape and it's like, okay, you just kind of different colors. So we're making progress. It is a work in progress. And I mean, all credit to the Alana members and the organizers and the work that they've done. We're kind of building this plane as we're flying it, but there is a commitment. So from my point of view as a union president, my job is to support the Alana members in any way I can. They don't need me, the old white lady, telling them what to do. I have complete and total faith in them, and it's just awesome to watch what has happened. And that is the beginning. I said this to Teresa last night. I think, Alana, that is going to be the beginning of the real transformation of this union, because they are showing us how to use power to get things done. So I think
our next step was to meet with school committee members individually to let them have a chance to talk to us about our lovely action. We have had one meeting so far with one of our school committee members, which turned out very nice. She was very supportive and has kept in contact since. So we have more coming down the line, but that's our next step after the action.
Close them out.
I know, right, our VP is working on that.
So we're going to pause the storytelling for a moment and give the audience a chance to ask any questions.
My name's Mariah. What's the makeup of the school committee right now? And like Central, what does it look like there right now?
Okay. So she asked what's the makeup of our school committee, which is actually kind of interesting. We have 4 women of color, 2, and then the other 4 are white men. So our school committee is our superintendent, our mayor, and then 2 elected school committee, so the other 2 white men are elected school committee members, and then these 4 women of color who are elected. But the power is completely not balanced between 4 women of color and 4 white men. So when Brenda's working on getting them voted out, those are the ones who...
Other questions? Lori.
Lori Coleman, staff counsel with the MTA. I think my question's directed towards Jay, and you can tell it's an attorney asking it, but so was there, it's unlawful to strike in West Virginia, it's unlawful to strike in Massachusetts. It was unlawful for the air traffic controllers to strike in the 80s. And what happened there is that there was a political choice, obviously, by the government to pursue decertifying that union. And I know you said, what are they going to do, fire all of us when there's 700 openings, but they didn't have to fire you, they could have sought to decertify you. And how did you keep that from happening? Was there a political organizing event to that, or did some powers to be just realize how stupid that would be? I'm just kind of curious.
Good question. To be completely honest, I don't know all the background. I do know our state attorney general is actually running for Senate this year, and so that kind of worked in our favor because no one, running for office you don't want to see is the one who's putting teachers in handcuffs or whatever it would have been, kind of thing. I'm gonna leave it there because I think that's really all I know with it.
Up in the back, Jess?
I was just asked, what's happening right now in LA? And what's happening right now in Virginia? What's the next steps?
Okay, so you know, in California, we are a collective bargaining state, and we have been in contract negotiations for the last 16 months on a broad social agenda that we saw up on the screen, and we've been deadlocked. So we spent, actually I'm chair of the bargaining team, we bargained against 3 different superintendents, and right now we have the investment banker who our charter school majority put in with that $13 million. And he is not good, and he wants to just, make cuts. And he offered us a 2.5% salary increase when we asked for a 6.5%. So we're far apart, but we also make it very clear that it's not enough, salary is not enough. We must address class size, over testing. Our kids get over 100 tests from preschool to 6th grade. Just the issues that I think many of you face. So we're far apart, and so what the situation is last weekend we had a leadership conference, and we laid it out for our 800 school leaders, and we asked them, are you willing to strike if we have to? Because we're in the legal process now of mediation, fact-finding, district's last and best offer. We vote to strike or accept what they have. So our members overwhelmingly, probably 99% or if not 100% at that meeting said, strike. Of the Alliance to Reclaim Our Schools said that they would support us. They would maybe have a strike fund. And I'm talking about Boston, Chicago, and St. Paul, unions we work closely with. But I want to ask the MTA, will you support us? Yeah. What about either at your school side or at your legislators, or, well, of course you guys, if you want to join us for the strike, sure. But we all are facing the same issues. And if we do not act now, public education will die. And so this is a golden opportunity. West Virginia and the red states, they showed us that it can be done, and I think this is the time for all of us to strike.
So our biggest issue with our health insurance, and if you followed this at all, what came out of this was a task force appointed by the governor to look into this and fix this, and so, yeah. Honestly, it's going about like you probably think it would. Which is not well. So right now there's kind of a move between a lot of us that were very active during the strike to kind of do some really deep level organizing and really be ready for whatever happens next, wherever this insurance thing goes and whatever happens post-election with our legislature, that we're actually, last time we kind of surprised them that it won't be so easy this time. So to be really organized, be really ready, and just see kind of where that fight takes us. I just want to say one other thing. I'm going to get off topic just real quick, but like, I know Massachusetts, you fund your schools really well in some places. Or that, okay, in West Virginia, we hear about Massachusetts like, wow. Well, I've taught, I haven't always lived in West Virginia. I've taught in some wealthy districts before, and I realize how easy it is to think like, oh, that sounds really bad there, but we're pretty lucky here, and we have some good resources, and things are great. We have supportive parents and families and everything. But like Arlene said, it's happening to all of us, right? Like, there's cuts coming, and there's things happening. There's things happening at the state level and at the federal level, and it really is going to be just a slow death of public education if you don't do something now. Look, we needed, Mingo County is the county that finally decided we're walking. We needed that to kind of spur us on and make us bold enough, all of us, to step out. So in Massachusetts, who's going to be our Mingo County?
So we have time for one more question and.
Hi, I'm Jennifer from Reading, and I think my question is for Lynn. I come from a town, or I teach in a town that I think is very similar to most Massachusetts towns in that we're heavily segregated. We have, as far as I knew until I checked our DESE stats today, we had 0 people of color teaching, and I learned today that we have 3 in our entire district. And so I'm always pushing to expand the pool, but how can those of us, because there's so many of us, I think, in districts that don't have any staff that would actually be a member of an organization like Alana that's so amazing, how can we also push? Like, how can we learn what you guys are doing and push it in ours? How can we get that information so that we can also fight? Because I don't want my school, my teaching staff to reflect my population, because my population and my town is white. I want my teaching staff and my faculty to be diverse, not just look like my town.
Just the fact that you asked that question is amazing, and it starts with you. Just the fact that you're thinking about that is hugely important. And I would encourage you to find other teachers that are thinking the way that you're thinking and asking the questions that you're asking, because we have our Alana Collective, but we also have Alana Allies, and they help us too, and that's a big part of it. So definitely start there. Start looking for teachers that are on the same page as you.
So we have to wrap up.
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
Brief? Eli, brief.
Oh, brief.
No story, brief.
I want to ask our young brother from Arkansas.
West Virginia.
Okay. The young brother from West Virginia. You've just experienced quite a catharsis in terms of black and white folk overcoming some things together for the good of our union, for the good of all of us. How does race play in your state? How does race play with your teachers? And are you concerned about race being used to divide your people in terms of your successes?
Yeah, that's a good question. West Virginia is a very white state. I think it's like 93% white. And so I think what happens sometimes is people think, oh, that's not really an issue we need to think about. But my school, for instance, is probably about 50% African American. And so I was thinking about the last question that was asked and kind of the response of like, just trying to bring more awareness to it, making people aware this is really an issue, and teaching communities in schools should reflect the communities they're serving. That's the best way for everyone.
And that was a conversation that we had in one of our meetings. With our Alana Ally, some people will take that conversation better coming from an Alana Ally than Alana educator. So that's really important that you start that conversation with the people around you.
So there's a lot of power at this table, and there's a lot of power in this room. And I think our panelists really helped give light and elevate the things that are in front of all of us. And it starts with understanding the narrative. And Arlene at breakfast this morning talked about something really important. She talked about we actually just need to name it. It's austerity. And she said something really beautiful. She says it's not a fact. We live with it as if it's a fact that we can't deal with, and it isn't. It's the billionaires. The people who have the money, and some of you heard me say this, are the people who are telling us there is no money. And we're here to take it back. Their stories were about talking to members in all the different ways that you heard, face-to-face, on social media, through meetings. And then those stories led to connections and solidarity. And you heard that in what Sasha said. And then those stories lead to righteous anger, and as union members, we harness that. And we turn that righteous anger into action, right? And action turns into power. And here in Massachusetts, we have been feeling our power a lot. And we are under the same assault, death by 1,000 cuts. The foundation budget for 25 years has gone underfunded and it's broken, and that actually means that a kid who's 25 went for all of her years of public education not getting what she fully needed, let alone what she deserved, right? That we were going to fight, and we were going to fight, and we were committed to that fight, and we were going to win the Fair Share Amendment. And in a highly political move, Baker's appointees stole that opportunity from us. Yes. So we're making our own.
Yes.
And the difference this time has to be that it isn't only a legislative fight, because we saw with how the foundation budget ended up, that when we build our power and it gets as far as it can get in the State House, when it comes to the last leg, and Jay said it, we did the emails, we did the calls, we did the visits, and what did it get us? Nothing. Right? So some of that work has to be done. But we need to start generating heat in the street to take back the money that our students deserve. And Max is going to talk to you about what we have in mind. And this funding fight has to be shaped by everybody in this organization. So tonight is the night where we talk to you about it and we get your ideas, and then we full speed ahead. So Max Page, our
I am just enthralled and fired up by the stories, the wisdom, and the inspiration we just received from Arlene and Jay and Maureen and Lynn. And at the heart of the stories is, as Mary was just saying, the problem of austerity. And everywhere, and I mean everywhere, every district, every campus represented by our union that Mary and I have visited, we have heard the same refrain that you have heard. There is not enough money. So let's be crystal clear. Austerity budgets are not a necessity, they are a strategy. And they are a strategy used by the far right, the near right, the center, probably even the near left, to starve our schools, squash our unions, and promote privatization of public colleges and our schools. And tonight, fortunately, I have for you some good news, and then I have some bad news, and then I have some more good news. Some of you have, I've told you these. So the good news is all of you, in fact, have access to all the money you need, not just to provide an adequate public education to your students, but an outstanding one. All of you have access to all the money you need to win good pay and benefits for your members, secure a living wage for our ESPs and paras and bus drivers, to hire enough teachers and aides and librarians, college faculty and professional staff, to have small class sizes and modern buildings. That's good news, right? So the bad news is, it's a small piece, is that the money, and I would call it your money, is still sitting in the bank accounts of some of the richest people in the world who just happen to be residents of this here Commonwealth. Fortunately, this doesn't end with the bad news, but with a little more good news, which is that this year we intend to extract a few $1 billion